Which Utah football players are in for a big Saturday against the Oregon Ducks? We're talking about on today's Locked On Utes.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first listen every single day. We are available on all platforms, including YouTube and wherever you may get your podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by our friends at LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you're getting access to the best qualified candidates. So that's why LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. You can post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions do apply. My name is JT Wistrcill, former intern inside the University of Utah Athletic Department. If this is your first time watching our show, make sure you guys like and subscribe. We'd love to interacting with you in the YouTube comments as well. On today's show, we're going to be talking about some stat predictions for some of Utah's top players and pretty much just throughout the entire Utah lineup that's going to be out there on Saturday, because this is a monumental game. And if Utah wants to beat Oregon, and this is going to be a tougher game than USC. I know Utah's at home in this one, but Oregon they're a better overall team, number one. And they just present more challenges. They're stronger at the line of scrimmage, in my opinion. And Dan Lanning, I think, has done a really good job. Bo Nix, the level he's playing at right now. But overall, this Oregon team is just a better top to bottom roster. And even though Utah's very good at home, it's going to be a tough one to win. So in order to win this game, they're going to need a pretty good performance from their quarterback. So will Bryson Barnes have over 200 yards passing? It's actually surprising when you look back. You'd think like, oh, he's been doing 200, has had 200 passing yard games more this season. Even if you look back to week one, though, he didn't have 200 yards in that game either. We know he didn't against Baylor. Yes, against Cal, started to warm up a little bit more, and then USC, best game of the season. So is Bryson going to have success against what might be the best defense he's played so far? Because we didn't see him against UCLA, and I do think that UCLA defense might be a little better than the Oregon one, but that's nitpicking either way. So I do think Bryson's going to have over 200 yards. I don't think it's going to be a crazy high number. I don't think he's going to push 300. We'll see. But I think somewhere between 200 and 250. And the reason I think that is because I do think the Ducks are going to pack the box. And I think there will be opportunities for Utah to make plays on the outside. And that's where it comes down to Utah's pass catchers stepping up. Whether you're talking about Devon Vele going out there and making plays, or even other players like a Mikey Matthews, a Landon King at the tight end spot, and Near McLean's been a guy who's brought in some big balls this season. It's going to be on those guys to win in one-on-one coverage. And they won't sometimes, and they also will a lot. I do think these are Utah receivers and just pass catchers, when you include King in that, who are capable of creating that separation on the outside. The question is how much separation, and can Bryson be given enough time, and will he make the throw? That's what it's going to come down to in this one. But I do think Bryson will be smart with the football. I don't think he's going to turn it over this week. If Utah obviously gets down like late in the fourth quarter and Bryson's trying to force something and make a play, I could see it happening. But I think that Utah is going to do a good job running the ball, as we'll get into those predictions in a second. And with this one, I think that Bryson's going to make smart choices. Andy Ludwig always has him do a good job of getting the ball out quickly too. So that's where I do look for Bryson Barnes to have a pretty strong outing in this one. And I do think he has over 200 yards passing. There are some liabilities in the Ducks secondary. Cam Ward diced him up a little bit at times, and some of the ball placement for Ward is not what Bryson Barnes is capable of doing multiple times a game. He can make one of those throws a game, but he never does them at the high frequency rate the better quarterbacks in college football, like a Cam Ward, who is a top 10 to 15 college football quarterback, I would say, can make. Bryson can't make those constantly, but if Manir gets open deep, he's capable of completing that. I would love to see Devon make a couple contested grabs in this game. I think that would be big for Utah here too. Landon King continuing to work well over the middle of the field, and look for the shifty athlete that is Mikey Matthews continue to get some things done too. And of course, it's going to be very interesting to see how the Ducks try to counter the Sione Vaki effect that this offense has been so potent at developing these last couple of weeks. Vaki has been a revelation in the run game and pass game. So those guys' ability to create separation is going to be key. But as we know with Bryson, if the O-line does their job, if the receivers are able to get open, he can deliver accurate throws. So I do think Bryson gets over 200 yards and will take advantage of some of the loaded boxes. So then the question becomes, how well will Utah run the ball? The Oregon run defense has been very good. I will say though, this is by far the best rushing attack they will have played throughout the season. Like Utah and their physical mentality, Utah is running the ball at a very high level. If you look at what they did against USC and going back to the Cal game too, post bye week, the offensive line's really coming together, and the 1-2 punch of Jaquindon Jackson and Sione Vaki, just simply put, extremely effective too. So I do think Utah will have success running the ball. I don't think they're going to demolish Oregon and like just constantly run it and run it and run it, but I think it'll be a healthy balance of not just run and pass for Utah, but also in terms of, I think Oregon will beat Utah in a play in the run game, and I think Utah will get a ground game against Oregon. I think it's going to be a fun back and forth. As I said, Ducks have some playmakers in their front seven, like Dolores and some of the other defensive linemen, linebackers they got, but this offensive line, once Coley was in at center, they've started to click much better off the bye week. I think they're in for a pretty good game. I could see Bryson getting sacked once or twice in this contest, but I don't think that Bryson's just going to be getting knocked around all over the place throughout the game. Like I said, I could see him getting sacked once or twice, but I think that Utah's protection will be pretty good overall, but it's just hard to shut out a strong pass rush unit like this Ducks defensive line. So as I said, I do expect the running game to get going too. And with the running game, I think we see another strong game from Jaquindon and Sione Vaki. I think Jaquindon is held just under 100 yards. I'm going to go him in the 90s. And as for Sione Vaki, I think when you combine his yards, he will have over 120 yards from scrimmage as both a pass catcher and a running back. I don't expect him to get 150 again, just because this Oregon defense is also better than the ones that Utah has played recently. But I still think Vaki is going to make a few plays here and will have 120 yards from scrimmage. Also looking over then back to the receivers, how I think they will do in this contest. I think Utah's leading receiver in this game is, I'm going to stick with Devon Vele. He started to show those flashes last week, and I think that continues. I could definitely see Money Parks making a big grab here because that's where this Ducks defense has gotten gashed at times on those big explosive plays. Munir McClain's brought in a few of those, and Mikey Matthews, all it takes is making one defender miss, and you can be off to the races. And we know how well Utah uses their tight ends too. So Landon King is capable of making some grabs too. But I do believe it'll be like Devon Vele and maybe next Money Parks, leader in the pass catching department for Utah. I think Parks has one big play in this game, and I think Vele is kind of a steady presence throughout who goes somewhere in between 50 to 90 yards receiving, let's say. But I think Andy Ludwig is in for a tough task facing off against Dan Lanning's defense, but he always does things that put his team in position to succeed. Now with Bryson starting, he can open more of the offense up. You can clearly tell he feels that way, and I think Utah is going to reap the benefits of that in an extreme fashion. So very excited for this opportunity that Utah has offensively. It's going to be tough, and I don't expect Utah to just march it up and down the field, like I said, because this Ducks defense is good. They deserve to be ranked in the top 10, even if Utah's able to beat them. And Oregon should win this game. But I still think Utah can get enough from themselves offensively where they're capable of scoring 14 points in each half. And if you can get to 28, that could be enough to win this game with how good the Utah defense has been all season, but in particularly at home. And speaking of that Utah defense, we're going to be predicting which Utah Utes are going to go off on the defensive side of the ball in one moment. But first, I want to talk to you guys about one of the sponsors of today's episode of Locked On Utes in our friends at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the largest independently owned daily fantasy sports platform in North America. They are the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more than or less than 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch winnings roll. With PrizePicks, it's the most fun I've had, winning up to 25 times my money this football season. You just like 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projected stats, and place your entry. PrizePicks is really simple to play. I can make my picks and submit my entry in less than 60 seconds. And with PrizePicks reboot policy, your entries stay in place even if one of your players got injured. For NFL games and college football top 25 matchups, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return for the second, the player is rebooted. PrizePicks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with the injury insurance. So make sure you guys go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use the code lockedoncollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Once again, you can go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use code lockedoncollege for a first deposit match up to $100. I also want to talk to you guys about another one of the sponsors of today's episode of Locked On Utes in our friends at LinkedIn Talent Solutions. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have the access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. You guys can head over and add your job to the purple hashtag hiring frame and get access to tons of great candidates ready to work today with their resumes already uploaded and their contact information. Once again, just add your job to the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. They have simple tools like screening questions that make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience, so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's one of the many reasons that small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. Alrighty, coming back in this one, let's talk about Utah defensively. Bo Nix is a legit Heisman candidate, and he is going to be out to continue that campaign in Salt Lake City. This will be, and it even goes beyond Heisman campaign. I think this has a chance, if you're just talking out loud, like for Bo Nix, could be the day where he has his game, where for NFL teams where he's like, all right, where were you at? Like, what's the really impressive performance? Because not all the Pac-12 defenses are elite, as we know. If he could come into Eccles Stadium and dice up the Utah defense, that would look really good for his draft stock. And of course, more importantly to the Oregon Ducks, they just want to come in and continue to move the ball and have success offensively, because it will allow them to win the game and continue their hopes alive at not just a Pac-12 championship game berth and just win outright in that regard, but if you're a one-loss conference champion, you're going to the college football playoff. That is what the history tells us. So a lot on the line for the Ducks offensively, and they're talented. Troy Franklin, Bucky Irving, the lead offensive line up front. Shout out Jackson Powers Johnson, their starting center, who actually went to Corner Canyon High School. So he played his high school football in Eccles Stadium a little bit, won a state championship up there. So exciting opportunity for him to come back to Eccles Stadium. I hope he plays well, but obviously we do want Utah to win the game for a reason, but always cool to see those guys from Utah going on to have success at the next level. Alrighty, but talking about the defensive side of the ball for Utah, talking about, will Utah get 3 sacks in this one? I'm not sure about 3. I'm going back and forth. At the moment, I'm going to say they only get 2, because I think this is the best offensive line they will have played this season. Maybe the Washington one is up there too, but Oregon's offensive line is really good. I do think Jonah Elliss gets home. He always does. It's Jonah Elliss. He's one of the best pass rushers in college football. He's really got it all. When you talk about the bend, the way he uses his hands, the elite spin move, Jonah Elliss is a force to be reckoned with for even the best offensive tackles in the country. So I do think he gets home for at least 1, and he'll have forced some other pressures throughout the day too. I also think Karene Reed's going to get home on a blitz in this one and bring down Bo Nix. But even if Utah's not only able to sack him a couple times, the most important thing is pressuring him. Any quarterback is not at their best when they're facing pressure. That is what Utah needs to do. They need to be smart with their blitzes, but we know they can get home with 4 too, because of the way Van Fillinger, Connor O'Toole are playing, Junior Tafuna, Keanu Tanu Vasa, Samote Pepa, David Fotu, Aliki Vaimahi, all guys capable of pushing the pocket, and especially Fotu and I believe it was Tafuna last week, both did a good job getting their hands up at different points and batting passes down at the line of scrimmage, doing a good job bull rushing back the offensive lineman guarding them, trying to block them in the pocket, and then batting that ball away. So that's where I look for this Utah defensive front to really make an impact, because I think they'll get pressure, but it's just going to be hard to get Bo Nix down. A quarterback who does a good job evading it, can extend plays with his legs, and does a good job getting rid of the ball. So I do think the Utah defensive line is a good game. Can Utah stop Bucky Irving on the ground? I think they'll slow him down. This is one I would be shocked if Utah was able to hold you this season. Utah is let to allow multiple touchdowns at home. I would be shocked if that held after this game, because it's Oregon. Once again, they're a really good offensive team, and they're going to come in highly motivated. Yes, they beat Utah last year, but they know how hard it is to win at Eccles Stadium. Dan Lanning, you can tell, has a lot of respect for Kyle Whittingham and what he's been able to build this Utah football program into, and is trying to do the same thing with Oregon's right now. And they are a Pac-12 contender. They're just trying to break through for the first time under Lanning since he took over for Mario Cristobal. But talk about the line of scrimmage for the Ducks offense versus the Utes defensive line. I think it's going to be a great battle. There will be sometimes Bucky Irving gets some big runs. I do think Utah will hold Bucky Irving under 100 yards rushing, though. I expect the running defense for Utah to get a lot stronger of a start at home than they did on the road against USC. And I just think really Utah came into that game against USC being like, Caleb Williams is the focus. We got to be worried about the pass catchers. Lincoln Riley's teams don't really want to run the ball that much. And they did early on, and they had success doing it until the fumbles, and Utah, the run defense just got better in the second half. Utah will be ready to shut down Bucky Irving. They will have some success doing it. I still think he'll have over 60 yards, but I don't think 100 again. And one of the matchups I'm really excited to see is Troy Franklin Jr. against Zamiah Vaughn. I think Vaughn I think it's just Troy Franklin, so I apologize for that. But Zamiah Vaughn is having a really strong season, and he's really starting to heat up after what he did against USC. Barely heard his name called against Brendan Rice, one of the top receivers in the Pac-12. And Troy Franklin is another one of the best receivers in the conference that he's going to be matched up with a lot in this game. Franklin will get the best of Vaughn sometimes, but I also think Vaughn's going to get the best of Franklin in a few opportunities. I do think the Utah will be able to hold Franklin under 100 yards, and probably safety help from Teo Johnson and Cole Bishop. Some of the plays those guys are going to make will make an impact too. Very curious to see, by the way, how much Sione Vaki on offense, or excuse me, on defense we see in this game. Because look, Teo Johnson's been playing really well at safety. Miles Battle coming back his best game as a Ute, and that allows Cole Bishop, the emergence of Teo Johnson allows Cole Bishop to play in the box and have success like he's had all season long. So I do like what this Utah defense can do. They're so good at tackling in space. They rarely miss tackles in general. So I don't think that's going to allow the Ducks offense to be highly productive in this one. And I think there's a really good chance that Utah can make Bo Nix uncomfortable in the pocket, disrupt the rushing attack, throw off the timing on throws. I don't know if Utah will be able to pick Bo Nix off, but you know what? I'm going to predict they get one. And I think it's going to be Teo Johnson who nabs the huge interception for Utah. That'll be a turning point for them in this game. And I could definitely see Utah forcing another fumble too. I don't know if I'll predict that one, but I think the interception is the one I feel. I'm going to predict that. I think they will pick off Bo Nix once, because these corners are really good for Utah. They're going to be able to stick with the Ducks receivers sometimes, and the Ducks receivers are going to beat them. It's going to be a great back and forth matchup. There's a reason both these teams are ranked in the top 15. There's a reason that College Game Day is there. There's a reason that Fox's number one booth of Joel Klatt and Gus Johnson are going to be in attendance for this game. And you even got stuff like the Pat McAfee show that's coming out a day early to do their show live from Salt Lake City. So much exciting stuff going on around this game. And I think a lot of Utah players are in for a pretty good one too. Oh, last one for Utah's leader in tackles prediction. I think Leavani Demuni steps right into Lander Barton's shoes, and I think he has a really strong day. I think he's faced this Ducks defense a lot, and I think he will lead Utah in tackles with 9 to 12. Somewhere in that range is where I think we see Demuni make a strong impact for Utah, as I think they will have some success slowing down Oregon. I think this will be Oregon's worst offensive game of the year. And I think that will give Utah a real chance to win this game. And as for if I think Utah's going to win this game, make sure you guys come back tomorrow. We have our Locked On crossover with Spencer McLaughlin. I'll be going back and forth with him, debating even more of the key matchups and just talk about the biggest storylines of this game. And we'll be predicting who will win it. That will be on Friday's edition of Locked On Utes. But before we talk about if Utah will win, I just want to talk about what the potential of a win could mean for Utah. It would be their second top 20 win and another one over a powerful Pac-12 program in the Oregon Ducks. We're going to be discussing the impact in one moment. But first, I want to talk to you guys about another one of the sponsors of today's episode of Locked On Utes, in our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is easy to use, and there's a wide range of betting options, including the spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL. And as it pertains to our matchup with the Oregon Ducks, FanDuel at the moment does like Utah to keep it close in this game. And look, they're going to favor Oregon, as they should, right? I mean, Oregon, better team ranking-wise right now. ESPN Predictor, by the way, gives Oregon a 68% chance to win. Only Utah a 31. That one's an interesting one to me. But the line is still at 6.5 in favor of the Ducks. I like Utah to cover. I said it yesterday. I still do today. I think when you look at how elite this Utah team is in so many positions outside of quarterback, that's what's going to give them the opportunity to stay in this one throughout. The defense will step up and play well. The rushing attack will do enough for Utah that I do like Utah to cover in this one. So make sure you guys head over to FanDuel to get in on those odds today. All righty, closing this one out. Let's talk about what a win would mean for Utah. A win would be huge. Just another top 20 win. And now also, how about just if Utah's able to win? This is already one of the best home field advantages in college football. I mean, if you can beat this Oregon team at home and just keep the momentum rolling from what you did against USC, that would just be incredible. But a win here would mean everything is still on the table for Utah, as we talk about. They are still capable of going to, and they still control their own destiny as it pertains to the Pac-12 championship. They would own tiebreakers over USC and Oregon. That is monumental to have, especially because as good as Oregon State is, I just have a hard time seeing them getting the Ducks again this year. I think that game's going to mean a lot for Oregon at the end of the year, and I do expect that Oregon team to really be fired up after how they lost last year to Oregon State. So I expect Oregon State to lose another. And look, Utah very well might against Washington and could stumble against Arizona. There's maybe even Colorado, although I don't feel like that's likely. But there's other opportunities for Utah to stumble throughout the season, right? But those are all potential stumbles. This would mean you just, as of right now, are still alive for everything you want. That even includes going to the college football playoff, which is remarkable with all the players that Utah has lost, that we are going into what will be week 8 of the college football season. And Utah is still alive in the college football playoff race. Yes, they have one loss, so they're a little wounded in that way because you can't lose another if you want to make it, but they're still in it. And it's truly tremendous. So I cannot wait to see if Utah is able to gut this one out. They have, once again, just Cole Bishop, when you talk about Sione Vaki, Jonah Elliss. They have some of the best players in their position. Jaquindon Jackson, I think, is really good too. Satawa Laumea and that offensive line up front for Utah. You were talking about elite players, some of the best of their positions. They are more than capable of giving Oregon a game. And if Utah can get this win here, it's just another reminder of not just that Utah's alive for everything here, but just what a great coach Kyle Whittingham is. And this, just as long as Utah continues to win, and even if they do lose to Oregon, how can you not feel good about Utah as a program just moving forward? Like it was like, okay, they did it twice, but they did it with Cam Rising. Now they're doing it without Cam Rising, and they're doing it with a backup quarterback. And as much as I like Bryson, I will continue to say he is a backup quarterback. That's what you see when you turn on the games to me, especially because Utah still splits him out. He's a very good backup quarterback, and I don't mean to discredit Bryson, but the facts are the facts, and that he is a backup quarterback. So exciting opportunity for Utah football. I can't wait to see if they're able to pull it off. And this win would just be another monumental one. I don't know if it's as monumental as what they did going to the Coliseum, but keeping that home winning streak alive would be really cool. And you got a great chance to exit the season with the home winning streak continuing to be extended if you're able to topple the Ducks, because Colorado and Arizona State, I don't expect them to come in here and beat that Utah. Colorado and Arizona State are two of the 3 worst teams. 2 of the 4 worst teams in the Pac-12 right now. I'll give Colorado that a little bit, since they have given teams like USC a game. And as much as we love to dump on USC, they are still a decent quality team, and I expect them to get right against Cal, which I hope they do, because that makes Utah look better by if USC continues to be highly ranked and Utah beat them. So it's going to be interesting to see how this week plays out. But once again, make sure you guys come back tomorrow's show. Me and Spencer McLaughlin, Locked On Pac-12 and Locked On Ducks, more importantly for crossover purposes, are going to be breaking down the matchup even further. But let me know what you guys think, some of the best Utah football players, what their stats are going to be in this game, who's going to play well, who's not. Are they able to shut down the intimidating trio that Oregon has offensively? Do they do things against Dan Lanning's defense? I want to hear it all in the comments below. Thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On Utes your first listen every single day, and we'll see you tomorrow.